We're going to add some final dark areas before we add the fur to the ear and the remainder of the forehead. So this is black. I'm just feathering in a little more black color. Get it just dark enough. So now I'm covering my image with some glassine to rest my hand on. And I'm using the $2.99 new pastel, adding hair, using a sharp edge, rotating as I go, using a zigzag motion back and forth to add the hair. A few hairs, light hairs in with the black, but not too many. Rotating the stick, adding a few more hairs. When the stick gets really dull, then I stop and sharpen it, but I usually have 2 or 3 sticks on hand, so I don't have to stop in between. I can just switch out pastel sticks. Speeded things up just a little bit. I'm still using the same method of applying the pastel. Now I've gotten my 249 pastel, adding some lighter hairs. They're not quite white, but they're a very light gray, so they make a nice blend in the fur. Still using the 249. Now I'm switching to the white. And now I'm pushing a little bit harder to get it brighter down when I'm working next to the eye. Now I'm using the Create-A-Color black pastel lead, very sharp point, to add a few dark hairs in before I go back to using the white. I've switched to my 249 new pastel, adding hair to the ear. This time I'm going to let the edge of my pastel get dull, so the ears are not made completely of sharp hair. We want it to look fluffy. So I'll let the stick get a little dull. This is the 299. Gone back to using the 211 white. Adding in brighter hairs of the ear. You can see also that my ear, I have colored past the wood. I think I'm going to come back and add some gray where the wood is and make that extend a little further because I'm not sure where I'm going to crop my painting. I'm using the black charcoal pencil to add a few fine black hairs. I could have used the Cretacolor as well. They're interchangeable. And now the white charcoal pencil to add a few very fine wispy hairs. I can make them curly. I can be very creative with them and pull them out into the background. I've sped it up just a little bit, continuing to use the same three pastels. The 249, letting it get dull so the hair looks fluffy. The 299 and the 211. Now this is the Giraud 526. I'm using the edge for some super black final hairs. Just a few. I've removed the glassine paper and using the 249, I'm working on the outside edges of the wolf's face. Hairs are longer here, so I'm careful to pull out some very nice sharp hairs, varying the direction. They're not all the same. They're following the way the fur grows, but they're different. They're not all the same. Sometimes if you need to soften an area or create a shadow, but you want it to be very faint, you can use your graphite pencil, which is what I was doing. It's a very useful tool. Now I'm adding a couple of black hairs with the end of the black pastel, new pastel. I could have used a charcoal pencil or the Create a Color. Now we're going to finish up the body of the wolf. I'm using a little medium gray, adding just a few touches here and there to make sure everything's dark enough. I think everything looks good, so we can start adding our hairs. I'm going to use a 299, and the hair in the back is rather long, so I'm going to use long strokes. I think it's important to note at this point that I don't put a stroke of hair everywhere. I'm not completely covering the surface of the wolf with new pastel. We're letting the background that we spent so much time putting in show through. So I'm putting a few hairs over the dark background to indicate the body of the wolf. And the direction is very important where the hairs are. So you can see I put them in groups. I'm starting with the ones at the top, and I'll move forward in the picture plane to the face of the wolf. I'm adding a touch of 209 gray to separate some of those back hairs, make it just a little darker. I'm using the point, so I'm just shading it. I'm not adding dark hairs. And I continue to add gray hair with 299 to the back of the wolf. Now I'm using my pencil. That hair was a little fat, so I can make it thinner by using a graphite pencil over it. Now on the chest of the wolf, the hair gets very curly. And so I'm going to start drawing in hairs. But now I'm using the corner of the stick, not the side. So I can draw these nice curly hairs with the corner of my pastel stick, and then I rotate it around and use another corner, just looping around to create that tangled, beautiful hair that we see on its chest. Now I'm going to use my white charcoal pencil to also add some hairs. These will be finer and sharper because I am using a pencil. I didn't want to use pencil for all of them because some are more distinct than others. I'm continuing to add the hairs in the background. I'm using a longer stroke. I'm also letting my stick get dull. I'm not rotating it so that the hairs are softer and more fluffy looking in appearance. I'm using the 299 New Pastel almost exclusively. Occasionally I do rotate it, but not as often as when I was looking for the really sharp hairs on the face of the wolf. I'm using the corner of my pastel stick to create some more curly hairs. And you can see through these hairs into the background. The brown colors and the grays that we put down initially are visible through these curly hairs. So I'm just using the corner to create this look. I'm using the tip of my new pastel stick to add the bright white edges to the braid that's on the pillow of that the wolf is lying on. I'm going to use my pencil to draw in a few more hairs. I'm using my pencil to pull hairs out into the background, creating fine hairs going in wispy directions. It's really fun to do. Now we're going to need to draw some whiskers, I believe. I'm going to use my black charcoal pencil to do that. Make sure it's very sharp. Don't hesitate, just pull out the whisker. Right here, where I pulled out the whisker, I pushed too hard and left a little spot of white pastel. I can get rid of that by using my graphite pencil. This is an important thing to know. I'm going to use my graphite pencil to shade in between some of these hairs, and it works really well. This is the time that I look over my painting and see what else needs to be done. I add any final touches that I see, and it's just about time to sign my name. I hope you've enjoyed this project as much as I have. Please let me know how you get along painting your version of Skye. I'd love to see it. Don't forget to visit my website at www.kwit.com.